Welcome to the MBD podcast, show where we dig into what's actually working or not when it comes to scaling businesses with the people who've been there. Today's guest has definitely been there. So why don't you go ahead, introduce yourself, tell them where you're at, where you're going, and where you've been.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me, Jason. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Ryan Starks. I lead growth and marketing at Rising Team. We're a team development and leadership development platform using AI and modern technology to help scale manager development. I have been working with early and growth stage companies, throughout my career, all in disruptive places, both in healthcare and kind of HR and people tech. And, my passion is helping leaders and frontline teams, leaders at all levels, really adopt AI to make their team and performance kind of work more efficiently together. That's been kind of the common thread throughout my career, and love, my background is in strategy consulting and customer insights, and have, used a lot of that, throughout, as I think about kind of, building teams here. And where we go together.
Awesome. So when you first start working with the company or a leader, what are areas of opportunity you look for to help them identify the ability to help them scale or overcome failure?
Yeah. Great question. And I think about even when I was stepping into my role at Rising Team, there's really two key areas that I tend to look at when I think about, scaling and growth. And one is really understanding, the customer needs. So a lot of work I did early in my career that I was referring to is around using the jobs to be done framework to understand, what is the actual need, behind the customer. What are their kind of anxieties? What's preventing them from, getting to an optimal solution today? And you can break that down pretty scientifically. But actually going out and speaking with, current customers and asking them, like, what is it that you bought? Why did you buy? And in your words, what is it that you bought? And really kind of understanding kind of a cross section of customers, what their kind of why, and then what their actual buying journey was like. And that's really kind of the starting point to start to understand, if we want to drive growth and scale, what are we actually solving for? And what does that process look like today? Because you can start to wrap kind of everything around that. And both think from a journey perspective and then also channel perspective of, okay, if this is our ICP and this is their experience, how do we actually go and, bring this to more of those folks and enhance, the actual buying journey. That's one thing, is just really understanding, the deep customer need. And then the second piece, as I think about scaling, it's so easy to, look at kind of the full life cycle, all the metrics, and want to solve everything all at once. But really, you have to identify what the rate limiting step is, and focus there, and drive that, understand kind of that rate limiting step, in the buying process. So that could be, either, they're not getting enough leads, kind of top of funnel, and, we need to go, focus on, driving, website visitors to demos, or actually even going out and, outbounding and maybe getting top of funnel. It might be, though, that you actually have enough leads, already coming in, and you're not actually, converting them, post demo. There might be something in the sales cycle, kind of more, buyer support, education that's needed. And then the other aspect might be, you might actually be getting a lot of leads in, but they're not the right leads. They might be, a different type of buyer that, might have been who you wanted to focus on 2 or 3 years ago. You're still getting a lot of those leads just based on historical marketing efforts, but it's not really, the buyer that you want to go after today. So you have to wrap your arms around, what is the rate limiting step here, of the business based on, who is our actual, target ICP, and what are they experiencing in the funnel? And once you understand that step, then you can actually get the whole team rallied around solving that, and taking a really kind of experiment-driven approach. So I think it's kind of marrying those two aspects, understanding the customer journey, their needs, having, customers actually articulate that to you, and then being able to pair that with where the rate limiting step is in the funnel. And you can put those two together, come together as a team and say, okay, how do we actually solve this aspect now? And, that might require, trying something new, kind of top of funnel. It might require just improving, an actual conversion process, might be new content. It could take many different forms, but really just focusing the efforts, on that rate limiting step until you start to get that to move, right? So if it's something that's middle of funnel, we keep kind of putting activity around that and trying things, right, until we actually, okay, now we're going to see, better conversions, from the demo or kind of larger deals, whatever the metric is that we're focused on, you actually see movement on that. And then you can go on to the next rate limiting step, but really kind of taking a, tiger team type approach, and focusing, on growth, and that's kind of taking into consideration the full growth model.
Got it. So essentially what you're saying is you need to know who you're selling to, and then you kind of work backwards from that. Right? Like, you look at your funnel of traffic. Okay, traffic's coming in. Are they booking an appointment? And then kind of walking down the flow, identifying if they're not booking demos, are they the right traffic, even though you're getting them in, and keep going up. And then essentially, I've noticed that I've had a lot of success dealing with the awareness stages of the funnel. Because if you know your ICP, then it's like, okay, unaware, solution aware, then product aware. So it's like hitting those different points of the funnel. I seem to have a lot of success with of what I've noticed. What are some ways that you help people identify their the client that they're going after? Like, because so many businesses you go into and they're like, yeah, we got people coming in, but we're not exactly sure who this person is. Like, they have this issue. How do you help them really narrow down on that?
Yeah. I think first it's looking in your existing customer base and understanding, okay, where are we seeing the most success with our customers, and, what are the characteristics and criteria that are making them successful, with our product. And, using that to really, hone the actual ICP persona. And then, it's finding kind of what are those signals right then, like whether, if they're unaware or problem aware, how do you actually start to test those signals? If they are the right persona. I think it's right. It's easy to find things like, okay, right company size, right industry, right title. Those are all kind of the, easy things you can either get from databases or, people can share themselves, right? It kind of depends on the channel or where you're identifying them. The other signal though, that I think is sometimes harder to pick up is, do they have the right, and we think about this, like, do they have the right kind of mindset and share kind of a common vision of the world that we do? And that's, I think, something harder, to pick up ahead of time. But there's signals that you can find. Like, we think about, are we working with leaders that, are we engaging with leaders who also share a vision for deep human connection on their teams, care about team development, leadership development, and also see an opportunity to, incorporate more AI technology and not rely on the old ways.
Mm-hmm.
And right, it's harder to, like, it's hard, how do you find kind of that, someone with that same mindset? There's things that you can look at someone's LinkedIn profile, see what they're posting online, see what they're commenting on, start to get a feel for really what they care about and what's a priority in their world. Other times it can be, okay, can they, are they going to self-select into some type of forum that we create, around that topic? Are they interested in actually, learning or leaning into that? So I think some of it is, finding offers that, and hooks that might not get, everyone out there, but are going to get someone, hook someone that, shares that same, it's valuable for someone that shares that same kind of signal. Right? Because it's easy to put out, download a white paper or, drive someone to, some other type of content. But really, are they going to make an investment, in time and learning that aligns with where we can help? I think that's the place where I like to push.
Got it. And then How do you identify kind of that, you know, you aggregate data and you're trying to find this ideal ICP. Um, what tools are you using to find out? You know, because going individually can take a lot of time. So, are you using any tools to say, hey, this is helping us identify these potential clients that we're looking to go after because they have a similar outlook on what we do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we use a lot of this the traditional tools of looking at okay, if we're gonna we'll look at certain geographies and companies and titles, right, and can kind of narrow down to at least from a persona perspective, this is these are the right folks, and then the other thing that we'll look at is is we'll start to drive different offers for folks. Um, you know, I guess in terms of tools themselves, we reach out to folks. We do use some AI tools,
Mm-hmm.
reach out to folks in a really personalized way, and then have kind of an offer, right, for them to engage with us. Sometimes in like we'll have local forums, sometimes executive dinners, but use those types of tools, right, to filter and have folks kind of self-select in to a lot of those. There's certainly like kind of a lot of social listening tools that we've explored out there. Yet that kind of I think also relies on folks actually kind of always being out there.
Putting stuff out there.
Um, right, right. And so I think we have been kind of very focused on a very select kind of very focused ICP. And so yeah, use a lot of like a lot of tools to understand who is kind of the world that we're going after, and then try kind of new novel ways to engage them.
Got it. Awesome. So you got identify your ideal ICP, find out who they are, where they are, go after them, try and start the relationship to get them into your funnel, right? Then you're going to push them through your funnel so that way you get a demo. Now, have you found any success in offering anything outside of a demo to acquire the marketing information? Because I think, like, if you're a established business, pushing people to demo can be a big step within the relationship that you're just forming. So, do you find any other tactics that you can get their information so you can continue to build the relationship with them if they don't book a demo?
If they don't book a demo, we do kind of understand who's actually visiting the website and can
Mm-hmm.
see, can start to understand, some of their profile. We will also, reach out to folks, if they haven't booked a demo to, understand, what are they looking for? What are they searching for? How can, is there something that we can, offer them that helps solve whatever they're looking for or exploring? Some of it can just be more personalized outreach as well. So we tend to find that it's like we want to engage with folks on a really human level, and so have oriented to a lot of just a lot of personalized outreach like that.
Got it. Okay. So you identify them, you get them in, but I'm still trying to identify how do you know who these people are who aren't booking demos?
Who
Like
aren't
using
booking
the web
demos?
tools. Yeah. So I mean, I'm saying that someone comes through the funnel. This is someone that you had a relationship with. It's new traffic. How do you help push them along? Like, what do you do to capture their information so you can build that bigger relationship with them?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're able to see who visits the website, and then something piqued their curiosity, right? So either they were looking at a case study or at a specific solution, and so based on that, we'll share back information with them, either just through retargeting on Google or LinkedIn to help them
I see.
share that information with them again.
I okay.
And so yeah.
I understand. I was trying to see how do you know who these people are? Like, how do you? So yeah, if you read, so they come to the site, they essentially establish that their relationship with the site, then you're able to reach back out to them through advertising. I was thinking you're saying, yeah, we can see his. I'm like, how do you know who these people are? How do you know to go back to their LinkedIn profile? I was like, man, you got some magic going on. I want to know what this is, but I get what you're saying now. Okay, so it's just your standard advertising strategy where like someone comes aside, they come into our audience pool, we then have follow up communication that goes through these channels. So it's retargeting to get that information back. Okay, cool, awesome. So now what? So you got that. I mean, this kind of applies to everyone, right? Like, hey, we identify our ICP. We then go out. We identify the channels they're at. We're trying to find out who are those people through these different tools that exist. Whether it be Apollo or LinkedIn Sales Navigator. and some AI scrubbing as well too, to see like how we can find those people who have the same mentality and direction and in their company vision. And then you reach out to them, leveraging paid ads or even maybe email. Just you've got that, builds your audience pool, which then you retarget if they don't do the action you want them to do, try and establish that relationship. Then you get them to book the demo. Now that they book the demo, what are the steps to get them to actually close? As they've seen the demo, and then what's your process to make sure that, hey, they become a client if there's someone that you want? Because I think people forget it's a two-way qualification. Like, I like you, you like me, or I don't like you, or you don't like me, right? Like, so it's making sure it's both people like. So how do you get them to really become a client that you guys can service?
Yeah. Great question. And what we've found is, we really want to be a partner with our customers who are often, it's oftentimes the first time they're, buying an AI tool for, leadership and management development. And so, we want to be able to partner with them and work together with shaping the full strategy for what are they looking for at their organization? What do they need? How would they think about this, at scale? And paint that future vision for them. So that's oftentimes the starting point of, understanding, mutually, what would success look like for you, here, a year or 2 years from now? What will that actually earn you, the right to do in your business? One thing we like to do, early on after, we've taken them through a demo, had kind of an intro call, is actually just letting the teams actually experience our product. And so we offer both AI coaching and role play, and then team building facilitation. And these are very kind of interactive tools. And so what we'll often do is, for whoever we're speaking with, we'll set up an actual, team account for them. And, they'll oftentimes, then actually go use our team building facilitator tool and run one of our kits with their team. Themselves, because our tools are all very self-driven. It's almost like a team building facilitator kind of with autopilot, right? That you can facilitate any type of workshop with your team. So we'll actually just set them up and let them try that as kind of a playground to explore. And with that, they can then they'll start to gather data about their team and can use the AI coaching and role play tools as well. And so we really find, front loading the experience, letting them actually see it and think about it in their environment, in their context. And, these are leaders that understand their company and their culture and understand their leaders more than we do. And so to helping them kind of creating an experience for them that helps them to understand, how they can use this best in their context. And that often then leads to just deeper, more informed conversations around the right way to deploy this at scale. Who are the different cohorts that would make sense to roll this out to? What's the right cadence? How do they start to incorporate, the technology into, existing processes or initiatives at the company, and really kind of fitting it into their context. And so then we can have, that experience does just, allow for kind of deeper conversations, and we can partner with them together. From there, it's just, it's oftentimes just developing a really, bespoke, bespoke rollout plan with their kind of end goals in mind. How do we get them to the outcomes and the scale that they're looking for, as quickly as possible, and partnering with them on that. And so it's, a lot of, we focus on a lot of enterprise deployments, kind of large scale deployments. We also do work with some, in just to bring some specificity to that, we're often working with CHROs, CIOs, CTOs as their so both HR leaders kind of rolling out to the organization, as well as organization leaders themselves. And so we're working with them on these very scaled programs. We do work with some individual leaders who also want to bring the technology maybe just to their team,
Mm-hmm.
but more so it's really more so it's really helping to deploy kind of more at scale. And so those are the types of programs that we're working with them on.
Awesome. So if someone's listening right now who's trying to scale, what's one piece of advice you wish you had earlier on?
Mm. Yeah, great question. I would probably double down on what I was sharing earlier about talking to customers. I think the best thing that anyone, and regardless of your title, kind of stepping into a company and thinking about growth and scale, The best insights, are actually understanding in your customers' words, what is it that they bought? Why did they buy it? Why was it better than, existing solutions? What is it helping them solve? And there's nothing like a real, candid conversation with a customer.
Hmm.
And so I'm a big fan of just getting out there, speaking with customers, both if you're just stepping into a role, but also, throughout the growth process, right? Everything's, things are changing. You're always getting new customers. And even if you aren't in, even if you're not in a customer facing role and in a more internal role, oftentimes we'll record these conversations and share them back with our team, because ultimately it helps us understand like what is the actual true value you're delivering, not just to the company and organization, but to your customer as a person, right? As a leader themselves, and understanding of how they articulate it and what's important to them. I think you can wrap your growth strategy, your messaging, everything that you're doing, kind of around that. But that's really what you need to understand at a fundamental level.
Awesome. So where can people connect with you and learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, Ryan Starks at Rising Team. Also, encourage folks to visit our website, risingteam.com. We have many, resources, and we'll, make an offer. We're always, excited to help, leaders, regardless of where you're at in the organization or your function, to try out, a workshop and coaching and role play with your team. So always happy to help set up leaders and try that out, try that experience out.
Awesome, man. Thank you for taking the time.
So yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.